Hello and welcome to Merlin's Brick News, the weekly show on all things brick building, where we talk about set updates and announcements, as well as mocks of the week. Information is presented, as always, by setdb.org, the best source for set information on the internet. And this is where we are going to go, and we will start with BlueBrixx. As always, we go through the brands in alphabetical order. Same story as every week. Anyhow, let's get started. So BlueBrixx has here the 107285, the amphibian M3 floating rapid bridge from the German Army, aka Bundeswehr. This thing has 1917 pieces. Keep in mind it's scale 1/30. That is the BlueBrixx army line format around the German army, mostly, basically army. There's, I think, no air force or navy or anything like that. Anyhow, this thing has 1917 pieces, and it is roughly, 42 centimeters in length, 11.5 by 15 roughly in shape. So yeah, like it says, actually the German name is Schwimmschnellbrücke. Basically, that is the kind of thing they can basically, I saw once this thing on YouTube. They basically drive in a river, and then the machines of this thing can basically keep it in place, like in a very precise way. So I don't know if you have, a bigger river, you just need 3 or 4 or 5 of these bad boys. You just drive in the river and then keep them in place. Basically, I think they get also connected. The point is that these things are highly mobile, and they can basically build a bridge where tanks can go across within minutes. That's the whole idea. And as you can see here, BlueBrixx has even covered this by means you can even use a multiple of these if you have the budget, and in fact create your own bridge. So I'm not sure if this thing is used in other armies as well, but other fighting forces may have similar assets. So this may be convertible. Just keep in mind that everything that you see here is usually pad printed and not stickered. I.e., if you want to transform this into a different kit, then I guess you have to be a bit creative, basically to work around these prints. Usually, these BlueBrixx Pro sets in this army line are made by Xingbao, so that's the kind of piece quality you should expect. With that, we're moving on to the Frankfurt Paul's Church, in German Paulskirche. The 107267, this is an architecture set by BlueBrixx Pro. Again, I do assume it's made by Xingbao. Almost has, these pieces may be pad printed, not 100% sure. We do not have many pictures. If you look into this looks slightly like, not like a church, but more like a parliament. And in fact, that is what it was. So Frankfurter Paulskirche, for those of you not from Germany who may not know this, so in fact, it's not a church anymore. It was a church until 1944, and then during the bombing during World War II, it was almost entirely destroyed or burned out. And they rebuilt it after the war, but I think it was one of the very first things they did rebuild back in the day, because this thing is very symbolic for Germans, because this is actually where the first German parliament in 1848 was established. I think the whole idea of having a liberal democracy in Germany is from that time, and was a very short joy, so because I think this was put down by Austrian and Prussian troops 1 year later. But this is where, let's say, the democracy in Germany kind of began. I mean, as you all know, we kind of messed it up after that, but nevertheless, we started at this point in this point in time. And so this is what the building remembers of. Anyhow, it was never used again as a church after the bombing in 1944. And nowadays, I think it's used for various venues and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a very symbolic building, and BlueBrixx has made this set. It's just an announcement at this point in time. This thing is going to have slightly below 3,000 pieces. As always with BlueBrixx, price is unknown until they actually put it on the shelves. With that, we're moving on to a survival off-road vehicle in dark green, the 107298. It's out of the new MOCs line by BlueBrixx. It has 295 pieces, so it's a little bit like an 8-stud vehicle, aka a Lego Speed Champion, so similar size ballpark, I would say. However, I think it's a single-seater, so it's more like from the era of 6-stud vehicles in Speed Champion, something like that in this area. Anyhow, it's roughly 14 centimeters in length and 7 by 8.5 width and height, and yeah, I think it's very well done. There are not so many vehicle or four-wheelers in this kind of size. So I think that's a good message. I think Lego has done a couple. Mold King, I think, has also done a couple of quite strange looking SUVs, to be honest. So there's not that much in this area. So for those of you who are four-wheeler fans, this might be the set for you. With that, we're moving on to an apocalyptic war truck. So I've been told, for folks who know this, that this is actually from a Mad Max movie, this kind of design. However, as usual, BlueBrixx does not have a license. That is why this thing has a different name. I actually cannot confirm or deny this because I haven't seen these Mad Max movies for a very long time. Anyhow, the 106669 is announced. This is again from the BlueBrixx lineup. It's going to have 1,176 pieces. And yeah, here we go. That is the truck. It looks quite, I don't know, it looks interesting, let's put it that way. Not really my cup of tea, but here you go. And with that, we're moving on to the Dutch house facade. And number 8, the 104919, you see this already from the number. So I'm not really sure what happened, but BlueBrixx started to putting these out more than a year ago. They had 8 of those announced, and actually only 7 made it to market. And this one was kind of lacking behind for a very long time now. I think it's almost a year. So I don't know if they had like general structural problems in the design, manufacturing issues, or maybe simply the first 7 did not go that well and they decided to postpone it a little bit. I'm not sure what the reasons are. Anyhow, number 8 is now here. It has 2,334 pieces. It is 80 euros over here in Europe. And as always, I keep repeating myself, in Europe, please, especially for North Americans, keep in mind that includes tax over here. Anyhow, 3.4 cents a piece, 4.6 cents per gram is what the ZDB estimates based on the piece count or the list of pieces that we know. Yeah, here we go. This wasn't the 8th one now, and with that, I think the lineup is complete. So if you want, you can build basically this. If this picture looks familiar, even if you haven't been to Amsterdam, if you actually Google for pictures of Amsterdam, there's a pretty good chance, I would say higher than 50% maybe, especially if you Google for Grachten or something like that, around these rivers in Amsterdam, you will always see exactly these 8 buildings. I don't know, photographers. I just love to take pictures of these. So they are very well known. But anyhow, good to have them. With that, we're moving on to the 106673, which is now available as well. It's $60 over here, and it's the Interstellar Camper. Again, it's kind of a movie prop without a license. My understanding is, even somebody told me that this movie, there was kind of a deal with LucasArts back in the day, and I think part of that deal is that they couldn't do any merchandise and stuff like that around the movie. So I guess there's not even a chance to license this. Anyhow, BlueBrixx has decided to create this design. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's very well known. I actually have to admit, I'm a kid of the 80s, but I never really liked the movie. I do admit there were a couple of things that were very funny in it. And we, my circle, if you will, my friends, we're kind of rephrasing or quoting this movie a lot, let's put it that way. But nonetheless, I mean, yeah, I haven't seen it for, I don't know, 30 years or something. But here we go. With that, we're moving on to availability of the medieval housing tower, the 105787 from Matteo. So this is part of the medieval line of BlueBrixx. It's going to cost you $90. That's 3.6 cents a piece. 6 cents per gram roughly. And yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot of very familiar building techniques. The color scheme is the typical BlueBrixx medieval line color scheme by means of having a little bit of sand blue and dark bluish gray, but mostly light bluish gray and dark tan, and then the black roof, which is basically what Castle Blaustein is using most of the time. So I think it fits very well into the current lineup. However, I mean, it's a tower, so I don't know, not really my cup of tea. But if this is your thing, then here you go, another medieval set. And with that, moving on to a kind of surprise. So this is the Star Trek Borg drone bust, the 105418. So I think BlueBrixx has created a video on this one. I'm not really sure what happened there. Didn't do my research for whatever reason. I mean, it was kind of online, then they put it offline again, and now it's back in stock. but it's a lot cheaper than, first of all, what is usual and also what was originally announced when this thing was live first. My understanding is there's certain, let's say, build problems with this one, but anyhow, you can now buy it for just $50. That's 3 cents a piece. For a BlueBrixx Star Trek set, that is a lot lower than what is usual. Usually it's like twice the price. So I guess even 80 was definitely on the cheaper side, but I wouldn't have been surprised if BlueBrixx would have asked for, let's say, $100. So now going to 50 is extremely low. So not 100% sure what has happened there, but I mean, and I personally would never build it because I don't know if I could still sleep with this thing in the room. But if this is your cup of tea, here you go. And with that, we're moving on to Cobi. And here we have a couple of availabilities again, just over here in Europe. Still, I think not easy for Cobi to cross the pond and go international. Still pretty much like BlueBrixx, a European-focused brand. But anyhow, over here in Europe, we have now availability of the Maserati MC20 Cielo. And I'm pretty sure I've entirely pronounced this wrong. The 24352. So that is kind of, yeah, this is the... I mean, they have created the MC20. I mean, when was the MC20 released? I think it's almost 1.5 years ago. I think it was beginning of last year. So this is now the open roof version, if you will. It actually has a 2-in-1 function, so you can close the roof. I think there's a picture somewhere where you can see this. No, you can't. Here we go. So yes, it has a 2-in-1 function, and usually with Cobi, most of the time that means, well, you can basically remove a couple of pieces or attach a couple of different pieces, but this actually has a function in it. I mean, it's not like, I mean, if you look at it, right, it's basically a couple of clips and that is that. So it's not really like an interesting technic function. This is something that Cobi doesn't do. They go more like for a more accurate representation and not for function, but I think it's an interesting mechanism. I think it's playful. There's a lot of fun. Over here in Europe, we also have the executive edition of this one available, which is more like in a light blue, if you will. But this is actually... this is the only one that is available across Europe. No, I think the executive edition was only available in Germany. Anyhow, MC20 24352, and you can now pre-order this one for 109 euros. That's 5.2 cents a piece. With that, we're moving on to a tank. The T72 is now available. That's actually the Polish M1R version of this former Soviet Union tank, the 2624. It has 724 pieces. It's part of the 1x35 scale lineup of Cobi. 2 minifigures included, and sold over here in Europe for around $47. That's 6.5 cents a piece. In a similar ballpark, if you will, is a 2731. That's a KV-2 Soviet tank. That's of course is a big question. I think that is a Second World War vehicle, and it has 510 pieces. And yeah, it's only 1x48 scale. Keep that in mind. It's a lot smaller, and you can buy this over here in Europe, or pre-order, I should rather say, for 26 euros. We have availability, however, or in stock, the Sonderkraftfahrzeug 234/3 Stommel. So that is obviously a tank, Second World War, German Wehrmacht, 2288, 438 pieces, 2 minifigures. It's 1x35 scale. That's a minifigure scale by Cobi, and it's going to cost you over here in Europe around 40 euros, which is definitely on the higher side. Because that's basically 9 cents a piece. That's almost unheard of from Cobi. You will see this in a second when we look at a different vehicle. But first, let's look at the Puma version of this tank, 2287. 1x35 scale again, more or less the same vehicle. It just has a kind of different turret, if you will, right? Stommel versus the Puma version. And it's again 40 euros. So again, between 9 and 8.5 cents a piece. And if you compare this to this one, the Mark I C19, so that's a collaboration with the Tank Museum in Great Britain, and this one has 878 pieces and basically more or less costs the same, right? Which means it has like per piece price is like half of it. And I mean, they look very similar by means, you know, size of the pieces, etc., etc. So I'm not really sure what has happened here, but the simple matter of fact is that you can basically get here twice the tank just from the size point of view, the amount of pieces. And I'm also pretty sure it's like literally twice the size, and you get it more or less for the same price. Yes, you have only one minifigure, and at least in the I think in the Stummel version, right, this was 2 minifigures. But nevertheless, I think this one here is much more interesting. You even have the wooden roof on top that they used. I think it was an idea that they had to make sure that hand grenades could not, you know, just get stuck on the roof. And if you will, the idea was that hand grenades would just fall down. It was a simple wooden structure. So it was not, you know, it was not armor. It was just, the idea was just that hand grenades would roll off, if you will. I think it never really worked that well, so I think they gave up on it, but at least for some time this was a concept, and it's nice that Cobi has included this. I guess I've never been to the Tank Museum, but I'm pretty sure this is exactly how it looks like over there, right? That's why Cobi did it. With that, we're moving on to Funhole, and here we have now availability of the Western Saloon, the newest set of the Funhole lineup, the 9021. So it's already the 21st set that they have done. And you basically pay for this one in China around 120 bucks more or less. That's 5.9 cents a piece. And yeah, it has 3 minifigures included. It has a typical, let's say, Western Saloon design, very traditional by means of, let's say, movie interpretation of this kind of building from back in the day. Typical, let's say it has, I think, an interesting color scheme. It looks quite nice. It's a beautiful building to a certain degree, right? You can open up the back. And of course, the lighting is making this thing really beautiful. Actually, my son and I, my youngest one, I am currently building this one. What I can already say is that there's a ton of dark brown pieces in here. You can see this basically here on the bottom or in the base. And that's actually not easy to build, not easy to read, because you have so much dark brown on your desk, and you're missing a little bit on contrast, I would say. So it's not an easy build from that point of view, simply because of the color scheme. But next to that, I think, yeah, it's quite a well done build, and of course, all the lighting is helping a lot. Anyhow, let's move on to Lego. And here, of course, not a big news anymore. The Marvel Avengers Tower is now announced. It's going to be live November 24th, so Black Friday set of this year. So this is a change compared to the previous years, because Lego has mostly focused on icon sets, right? We have had the Eiffel Tower, the Titanic, and we had what was it, the Colosseum of Rome, and so this year is a license set, and I think I've talked about this before, but this is why my current guess is that's why they did the modular building a bit earlier of this year. So instead of 1st of January, it's coming now, beginning of December, so that folks who are not so much into Marvel or Star Wars licenses still have something they can build, right, during autumn or going up to Christmas or end of the year. So anyhow, Marvel Avengers Tower, this thing is going to have 5,201 pieces, 31 minifigures. And yeah, of course, the whole idea is that, again, this is, I mean, it's a very tall building. It's, I think, the tallest one Lego has ever done. You can connect it to modular buildings. So the concept is the same. You have a 32 by 32 base plates. You have the Technic bricks to be able to connect it to the modulars. Of course, that fits very well with the Daily Bugle, with the Sanctum. But of course, also you can make this part of your city. And I guess that's the idea. So this is a set both for Marvel fans who just love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, love all the scenes, you know, but of course, folks also who just want to have skyscraper-like building in their city. So this could be, again, one of those buildings, maybe less than the Daily Bugle, where, you know, people may join forces, like the Marvel fan gets all the minifigures, and the city builder fan gets the building. However, I think it's a bit more fantastical, or a bit more like novel-like, science fiction-like than the Daily Bugle. So I think it does not work that well in a city, but overall it's an impressive, very tall building by Lego. So nice to have this one. I definitely intend to build it. We will talk in a second around the upcoming Insiders weekend, but Lego at least has already announced all the gift with purchases for the upcoming 2 weekends. First of all, we have the winter market store, the 4062. This is a gift with purchase. I think over here in Europe, it's going to start at 175 euros. I think you get this one. And as always with gift with purchases, Lego is also putting a price tag on them, but usually you can't buy them. Anyhow, here we go. This is the Christmas set for this year's Insiders Weekend. But of course, the bigger one, the one I guess a lot more folks are interested in, as at least over here in Europe, is Magisto's Magical Workshop, the 4061. It has 365 pieces, 2 minifigures. There is a Dragon Knight and of course the Wizard in there. Personally, I'm a bit underwhelmed, especially by the Wizard, because at least over here in Germany, I know for a fact that they had like blue wizards in the BAM Tower in the Lego stores. So you can easily build these, and they were a lot better. Like all of the pieces pet printed and much higher quality. And you can buy these for, I don't know, 3 euros or something like that. So I would have expected in a gift with purchase that starts where you have at least over here, I think you have to buy for 250 bucks, something like that. I would have liked to have slightly higher quality here on the wizard character. But anyhow, we have a printed torso for this Dragon Knight lady. So that's pretty cool. The building itself, of course, is like a recreation of the beloved Magisto's Workshop set from, was it like late 80s or already early 90s? I'm not 100% sure, but it's a pretty old castle set. That's for sure. And yeah, it has, I mean, there are a lot of MOCs out there. I've actually built myself a MOC of this building, if you will, and it was like beyond 1,000 pieces. Obviously, that was much higher detailed, but even this one here has already more details than the original had, right? Because castle sets in the 80s and 90s had not that many pieces, right? A big castle was like 900 pieces. So it's really cool to have this thing with 350 pieces. I think it's well done, but you know, there are no prints in there. I think the key point here is this dragon minifigure. That's what I'm pretty sure. Anyhow, let's move on to another gift was purchased, and we all believe this thing, or Lego has actually said that this thing will go with, of course, the Avengers Tower, and this is the Marvel Taxi. So this is a little bit like a Speed Champion, but more like 6-stud era. So again, it's a single-seater, but my understanding is everything that you see here is pad printed. There are no stickers. That's at least what I would interpret out of this picture. But I mean, let's see until it's actually here. It will be in one of these simple, not really like a set kind of boxes, which actually has a different number on the print here than the number that Lego is giving us in the store. But anyhow, I think that's not important. It has 150 pieces, and that's all we know. In a nutshell, you have 4 minifigures, which is really cool. Personally, I would have liked to have a slightly more, let's say, slightly better box, but I think this is how they have looked like in the past as well. I remember for sure the Colosseum, this Roman gift with purchase was also in a box like this. But anyhow, here we go. That is the 3 new gift with purchases, and then we have a couple more announcements around 1st of January. We have another BlueBrixx Spring Festival Mickey Mouse. It's a 4673. It's typical BlueBrixx, 10 bucks more or less. I think Canadian it's 13. Everybody else has to pay 10 bucks. Even the Brits have to pay 10 British pounds. That's expensive. I guess the best deal is European Union with 10 euros. I think since they introduced the BlueBrixx, they have never raised the prices, which is quite nice. Makes the BlueBrixx more and more attractive from year over year. And yeah, here we have a Mickey Mouse, and I think he looks quite beautiful. Anyhow, let's move on to Sonic the Hedgehog Shadow the Hedgehog Escape. So I said previously that this is like Sonic in a black dress. That is not true, I've been told. This is not Sonic. This is somebody else. I guess that's Shadow. Yeah, I've never played the Sonic games. My sincere apologies, not really my thing. But anyhow, it's a beautiful minifigure, very well done, very cool mold. I think this is a different mold than Sonic, not just a different color. These are, I guess, the legs are dual molded as well. We have arm prints in there. So there's a lot of effort is in this minifigure. I mean, let's face it, 95% of all Star Wars minifigures can't keep up with this one. And it's a 20 euro set, or 21 over here in Europe, around 20 in the US. And it has 196 pieces. And again, this great minifigure plus, I don't know, what is this? Like a bird. Don't know. Like a tiny bird in a different thing. I have no idea what this is. But anyhow, I think the minifigure is mostly what is exciting around this set. And then we have the festival calendar, the 4678, 345 pieces. Also released 1st of January. And it's going to cost you between 27 British pound, and the highest price is $40 Canadian. That sounds a bit pricey to me. I think there's something wrong here, but anyhow, that's what LEGO thinks they can get for this. I mean, in general, I really like the design. I like the set. Keep in mind, I mean, I think if I look at these red tiles, this looks strangely like this looks like stickers, so I'm not really sure about the production value. Also, the calendar itself, if you look at this, looks like a very long sticker itself. Could be very hard to get this glued on, and in this kind of straight line that you need. Plus, the question is durability, right? So if this is really a sticker and this picture looks really like it's a sticker, then I think if you really use this like an everyday calendar, it will look pretty ugly after a year or two. So yeah, longevity of this set, I'm not really sold that this is actually a good idea by LEGO. Plus, I mean, it's a calendar. I mean, in general, the idea is cool because, right, you can change the year. You can basically rebrick it like every year, right? It's very easy to make a 3 out of this 4, a 5, my apologies, out of this 4. So that is pretty cool, but with all the stickers. Plus, because this goes like a circle. I mean, the problem is I do believe it's almost impossible with this building technique to print this, right? To pet print these round bricks, these 4x4s, from the sides, I think is very hard to do, which, however, also means it could be very hard to get, like in the, in the aftermarket. At least over here in Europe, we have a lot of companies using UV print techniques to basically, in the aftermarket, for you to be able to basically buy printed pieces in the design of the original LEGO stickers. But I think they will be very hard pressed to print this. And if they do it, I'm pretty sure they have to do every number individually. So you're right, you need 10 numbers per piece. So that is, this sounds like a lot of work. So I don't know, I'm not sure. But in general, I think the longevity of this thing is going to be the issue. Besides that, I think it's a nice design. And again, very, very broad range of prices internationally. With that, we're moving on to a couple of announcements around Minecraft, and here we have the Armory, the 2152, and then we have the Animal Sanctuary, the 21253. Both of them are around 200 pieces, have between 2 to 3 minifigures, and $20 roughly, or 20 euros. Wherever you live, different prices. But anyhow, with that, we're moving on to Wange. And here we have a PBY, Catalina, the Consolidated, the 5007. This thing has only 364 pieces. And if you look at it, yes, there's a lot of very large, specially made pieces in here in order to be able to do this very large airplane with such a small number of pieces. So it's very Cobi-like, I would say, from the design point of view. But of course, the PBA is a very well-known airplane, especially during the Pacific War, World War II. I think the Americans made more than 2,500 of these. Canadians maybe like 600. I even read once that the Soviet Union built a couple of these. I'm not really sure. So, like, not shipped by the US to the Soviet Union, but actually made by the Soviet Union based on American plans. I'm not entirely sure if that is correct, though. But anyhow, this, of course, is the US Navy version. And here we go. PBY 5A. Did I say PBA before? Anyhow, it's wrong. We have an announcement here from a German retailer, BlueBrixx in this case, that they would get this one in stock. So keep your eyes open if this is the kind of airplane you are going for. I don't know why Wange put Air Force on the box. Maybe it's just their line, because I'm pretty sure this thing has never been used in the US Air Force. I think it has exclusively been to the Navy. But anyhow, those of you who are a bit more into military history, especially in North America, may keep me honest here. Anyhow, we're moving on to, I mentioned this already, Insiders Weekend is around the corner. So we have double Insiders points, gift with purchases, and a couple of discounts and deals. So what I actually saw is, and this is quite interesting, depending on which I actually listed here in this news, which is, by the way, if you go to the start page on merlinsbricks.com, you will see this one actually. So I linked here the US, Canadian, European Union stores, etc., UK as well. What I can basically say is that there's a slight difference between Lego in North America and the European countries, plus means European Union, Switzerland, UK, wherever you look at. So Lego Europe, basically. So in Lego Europe, you have this side here, and mostly the sets that you see in this list. This is a list of sets that Lego will discount. So obviously there are a lot of sets where the discount is not making such, big dent because you have already a lot of discounts with other retailers. Of course, Assembly Square is quite interesting. Pac-Man is very interesting. Medieval Blacksmith going EUL, I think this year. Quite interesting as well. However, for instance, the Pac-Man, which I think is a good deal, $55 down, but in the US or Canada, I think it's the same. It's actually different. Here it's not Pac-Man, it's the Eiffel Tower instead. So personally, I do believe that the Pac-Man discount is slightly more interesting, but of course depends on what you're interested in. Anyhow, Assembly Square is going EUL this year as well. So I think there is a couple of interesting deals coming up. What is interesting is that the Insiders Weekend is between 18th and 19th of November, so Saturday and Sunday. However, the Insider member sale on selected sets, Lego is saying it's already the 17th. I haven't actually done the math here, but I'm not really sure why they say this, but it may be that this stuff already is like the discounts start already on Friday, and then on Saturday you get the gift with purchases, the two I talked about before, where they actually say this will only be 18th and 19th. So it may be, but I'm just speculating here because actually I checked this with multiple sites and it's all the Lego sites is the same. It may be that the discounts will already start on Friday, and then however you won't get the gift with purchase. And when you start getting the gift with purchase on Saturday, then the discounts may already been, or all these sets may already be out of stock. So I'm not really sure. But anyhow, I would try to get both in, like double VIP points or insider points, then the discount and the gift with purchase. And I think all of this combined makes an interesting deal, in my belief. With that, we're moving on to MOCs of the week. And here we have, of course, the famous building from Paris, the Arc de Triomphe from Arquette, I guess. 4,329 pieces of, from my point of view, for an architectural masterpiece. Is asking for £8, 8 British pounds for the mock design. And yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful. It is a very good representation. I mean, he's showing off this here with an original picture. I mean, the building techniques to get, basically the design done is so interesting, and it works so well, right? I mean, if you look close up to these statues, for instance, they have nothing in common with the original, but at the same time, I mean, they look almost like exactly like the original. It's so interesting. It, like, if you're far away, it looks like a perfect replica. If you're getting closer, look more in the details, you see it's just a soup of interesting pieces, matched together, and somehow, you get a look that is very close to the original. With that, we're moving on to a new micro diorama from Jelco, the Echo Base Part 3. Actually, it's Part 3 because they have released, or this design has released, a ton of Echo Base. I think I talked about this one here, the Echo Base Fighters, last week, and this week so much more stuff has been thrown in, including what Jelco calls a UCS micro diorama, because it is a lot larger than the other ones. It has 2,334 pieces, and yeah, look at this very cool battle. I think you don't see very often so many ATTs, AT-80s and AT-STs together you have the snow speeders and everything, and it looks again really beautiful, very well done. And but also if you look at this one here, the Falcon with 1,224 pieces. So if episode 5 is your cup of tea, then I think Jelko is definitely a designer you want to take a look at. Then we are looking at this one here. This is a simple addition to the 10270 additional floors by Lanku, I guess is the name, 1,094 pieces, €5 roughly for the design, and literally it's just additional floors. 2 of them, of course, I mean, basically what you need, right? If you look at the bookstore, basically you can basically add a floor to the original design. And I think this is a very cool idea because, I mean, there are a lot of folks out there, including myself, who, don't know how to build an entire modular on their own, but maybe to get started you could just use one of your existing modulars and just make them slightly bigger, right? Basically, pick Lego's design and just, by means of the walls, and then just add them on. And maybe on the inside, you can use your own fantasy, your own imagination to put interesting stuff in there. And I think this is what this designer has done. And of course, you can directly buy for $4.90 the instruction. But I think it's in general a great idea to get more out of your existing collection. With that, we are moving on to BlueBrixx Grillwell's Tokyo Coffee Store. It has 607 pieces, $3. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of these small buildings. It's basically on a 16 by 16 plate. Huge fan of this concept, this size. Cater, for instance, has a ton of these buildings designed by Access Sandbox, but I also really like BlueBrixx Grill's concept here of the Tokyo Coffee Store. Just a big fan because not everybody has the space to, buy regular modulars all the time. With that, we're moving on to Lego Profi, 836 pieces for the Watchtower, which is again in Lego Profi's a typical design language, right? I mean, if you look at all the buildings, it's very similar, all of them, but I do believe they always look really, really beautiful. And this, I think, is one of the smallest design this designer has ever done. And again, this whole concept, this idea of using like 1 million small plates to create this interesting look, again, works very well here. And there are a couple of masonry bricks thrown in there for good measure, but in general, it's mostly made out of plates, different kinds of 1x1 and 1x2 plates, round, modified, single jumper, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's a very cool design. Usually, I mean, this designer never shows interior pictures. Plus, I mean, if you look at how many small pieces are used here and the relatively low piece count, my assumption is there's no interior. But I mean, that is what you could do on your own, right? So yeah, very cool design. Moving on to another design of a tower. This one is a lot bigger. It's by Even Medieval. Great name. 1,534 pieces, $6 for the instruction manual. And this is a much larger keep that actually, I think, goes together with his gate of Castle Brichtenstein. My guess is he wants to build an entire castle in this design language, and it's, moving on now piece by piece. So here we go. After the gate, we now have the keep. And the idea of this keep, I think, is that basically 3/4 of the building are like, exterior focused, and then you have 1/4 that is open to basically throw some minifigures in. My point of view, I think he's going for, I mean, it's very piece heavy, and at the same time, it almost has the country design language of a playset. So I'm not really sure in which direction he wants to go, because I think it's getting too heavy and too expensive for kids to play with, and maybe, I'm not really sure if this is something for the grown-up collector. So maybe put something in the comments what you think about this. But personally, I would rather go for this kind of design of Lego Profi. But yeah, I mean, there's something for everyone. Speaking of that, there's another castle, and this one is the Black Falcon Eagle's Nest Castle by BlueBrixx. It has 4,421 pieces, €9 for the instruction manual, not too shabby. And yeah, I mean, it's a large castle. And it's interesting. It's one of these designs, a bit like Line Knight's castle, I guess, by Lego, by means, yes, it has a modern Line's design language, if you will. I mean, the original castles in the 80s and 90s were all basically just, a couple of panels put together. And this, of course, is entirely brick built, like Lego did with the Lion Knight's castle. So that's why you have this very high piece count. But still, it looks like castle, right? I think it comes especially from the roofs, using more or less like regular slope pieces. So it's not that detailed in that regard. But I mean, if you look on the inside, there's a ton of detail here, a ton of interesting stuff to find and look at. It looks highly modular. So all in all, a very good design. I think a design that should go very well together with the Lion Knight's castle. With that, we're moving on to Chris Romans. Of course, they had to do the Marvel collection. They had to do the tower, and together with the tower, you get now this collection where you have the Sanctum as well as the Daily Bugle in this micro format. However, when I say micro format, don't underestimate these. I keep saying this. This looks small, but they are not. I mean, these three things here have 1,434 pieces. However, of course, it is a lot smaller than the original building. So if Lego sets are too big for you and maybe not in your budget, so this could be an interesting alternative, because who has the space? And with that, we're moving on to all of those folks who have a lot of space. You may be interested in the Magic Castle Great Tower version 2 by Brix Sanchez. I'm actually asking for 25 euros. That's a bit on the higher side price-wise, but this thing has 5,578 pieces. And yeah, here you go. I think he mentioned himself that this should go together very well with his Great Hall. However, the Great Hall is still in version 1, and I think he mentioned in the announcement of the tower that the version 2 Great Hall is also in the making. So yeah, I mean, if the grand stair set from Lego is too small for you, maybe this staircase is more interesting and more to your liking. Technically, this is of course made for minifigures. It's not minifigure scale, but I think it should work a lot better than the Hogwarts playset by Lego with minifigures. And with that, last but not least, we are coming to a couple of trees by James R. 740 pieces for the Christmas tree, including, the small box that you can actually open and you can, put something in there. So this could be a nice present, for instance, like, I don't know, throw in a new sig fig or something in here and make this a present. But there are also other trees, like a pine tree, for instance, very similar. So these kind of potted trees, if you will. And he calls out here botanical collection. But yeah, snowy pine tree. There are a couple of others as well. With that, last thing to say, I hope you liked the show. For those of you who watch this on YouTube, please leave a like or comment, or wherever you listen to this, follow, subscribe, whatever you can do on your respective platform really helps me out, helps the channel, helps the podcast. With that, thanks for listening. See you next week.